Hello and welcome back to my channel. So today we have a juicy topic, which is what to do to close more inbound leads in your DMs. And more specifically, we're going to talk about why inbound leads actually ghost you. So inbound leads are the ones in your DMs asking about your package, your service, be like, tell me more. So when you tell them information, why would they actually ghost you? What do you need to do instead? Instead of just giving them all the information that they need, to avoid them, like your inbound leads actually ghosting. And then the last thing is a bonus tip, a sales psychology you can actually leverage to close more inbound lead in the DMs. But before we actually jump into the juicy training, I want to normalize something first, and that is very, very normal for people to ghost you. That's just part of the process. It does not necessarily mean that you're doing anything like horrendously wrong. So if you have been following me on Instagram for a while, and if you haven't, follow me, and my Instagram handle is at DailySurprisesMedia, and also link that in the video below as well. You will be able to see in my story highlight, we are actually a done for you sales agency. So part of what we do, we actually sell in the DMs for a client. And one just really fresh example in my mind from this morning when we're doing done for you sales for a client, a bit background story. She's actually a multi six-figure coach. She's ready to hit her 7-figure, pretty close to it, I would say. And because she is have high ticket package, she's really high in demand. That is why her process is very different from somebody, let's say, newer in the space, right? So when you're newer in the space, you don't necessarily want to put a lot of friction in the journey to stop people buying. Whereas where she is, she don't necessarily want to have DM conversation with everyone that says I'm interested, because a lot of them not necessarily ready, or they haven't read the sales page to pre-qualify themselves. So what she has in place is actually a application process. It's actually a pretty long application process that people need to go through. They need to type in all the answers. It actually takes a while for you to answer all the questions. And when you submit, we then read through the application form and then reach out in the DMs to kind of going through the next steps, right? So even with people actually putting in tons of time in the application, when we reach out in DMs, we still get leads kind of ghosting, right? So they would spend long hour, let's say half an hour to submit application form. But then when we reach out in DMs, that's when they start having say the doubt in place or something else, or fear that they don't know if they want to move to the next steps anymore. That is absolutely normal. It happened to everyone. It happened to all the business owners, right? So don't make that wrong about your business. But what you do need to know is we do not necessarily want to read those signals as they're not interested, right? So they ghost in the DMs literally just means I am not ready yet. So it's your job as the business owner to figure out what is the underlying thing here that you need to help to solve for them to reach a decision. So one of the things I talk very often about is when it comes to kind of objection handling, like in this case, ghosting is in a way kind of like objection because they are not really responding. The goal with objection handling is not necessarily to get somebody to a yes, although that's obviously nice and really good for your business. The goal of objection handling really is to help somebody to reach a decision by making sure that they have all the information they need to make a decision, right? But here's the thing. A lot of people think they have enough information to make a decision. That's why they ghost you. So going to our number one, we talk about why your inbound lead ghosts you. What's very likely happen is when you have somebody reaching out to you in the DMs and say, hey, tell me more about your package. Tell me more about your service. I can almost say if you have people ghosting you that there's a very high chance what you did is just word vomit. What you did is I have 6 months coaching package. Here's what it looks like. We have this many modules. You're going to have a Facebook community. You're going to have Voxer access. You're going to have this and that. And here's what it looked like. Here's week 1, 2, 3, la, la, la. You're basically giving them a whole essay in the DMs, no matter it's a voice message or just DM chat. And that is overwhelming for the person on the other side, right? That's the first thing. It's overwhelming. But the other thing is the person on the other side, if you're literally just having a one direction conversation, they at this point feel like they have all the information they need already to make a decision. One is not necessarily true, right? So you gave all the information you think they need without you understanding what they actually need. And they get that information thinking that they have all they need, but it's not necessarily answering the deeper level questions that they may have, right? So will this work for me, for example? Let's say I have a 9 to 5, or this actually work for somebody with a 9 to 5, or let's say I am somebody in the field for 10 years already. Is this for a beginner or is this for somebody that's more advanced, right? So they may have this deeper questions, but you never get to there. You never get there. And the information you gave to them never answer these deeper questions either, right? That's why they feel they're stuck. And then when they get the information, they're like, okay, I'm not gonna have a conversation with you anymore, because all they focus on from that point on is what's included in the program, how much is it, right? And that's it. They basically, from that point on, making decision purely based on potentially what's included in pricing. Well, that's all good. It doesn't really help you, because it doesn't give you like the best chance to explain why the program is the right fit for them, if it's actually right fit for them, right? And also on the other way, like if they're not the right fit for your program and you pitch somebody with all the information, they may have the, like kind of thinking that they are the right fit program, but they're not. And then when they get into a program, they're not necessarily getting the result they're expecting. And then you have a lot of headaches to deal with after, right? So for both reasons, you really want to making sure that you are having a conversation with them. So that's the first thing I want to talk about, why your inbound lead is ghosting you, mainly because they think they already have all the information they need from you. And that is partially coming from you kind of word vomit, giving them all the information you think they need, right? So what do we want to do instead? What you want to do instead is really to kind of like train them. I don't want to use the word train, but it's almost like help them to build rapport with you in the DMs, help them to understand that this is a two-way conversation. It's not exactly they ask you a question like asking Google and Google gave the answer, right? Because you care. You are not a machine, you're not an AI, you are on the other side trying to help them to decide if the program is the right fit for them or the offer is the right fit for them. So questions can be like, let's just go back to that example before. Let's just assume that you help established coaches to scale to that 20K, 30K mark, right? And that's the people, that's the population you're serving. You can go back and ask questions like, hey, are you a coach right now that's hitting this range? Or are you an established coach having high ticket package doing these kind of things? So whoever you describe to be on your sales page, you want to ask that question to making sure that the person in the DMs know that, right? Know the kind of person, know the ideal client you actually help with. And that person may say like yes or no, and then you know which direction you want to move the conversation, right? So, and then you potentially want to ask even more questions, and well, you're giving more information, right? So the really good thing about this is when you're having that back and forth conversation, the other side of the person is gonna feel like they are, like being listened to, right? They are being understood because you actually care, rather than like, here's the price, here's the thing, here's included, here you go make a decision. Especially if you're selling high ticket, that's high touch. If this is your sales process, that is not, like you don't really show any care in the process, it's very unlikely for somebody to convert, because they're like, okay, if they don't really care during the sales process, what's it going to be like when actually in the program, right? So you want to making sure that your process is consistent. I'm not saying that you have to be like so high touch, there's no boundary. Like that's not what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is you want to making sure that the other person is a good fit for your program, and you want to making sure that you're putting effort in it to making sure that's the case, right? So having that open question really helps. And as well, when you do this, they already have that back and forth conversation with you. Maybe reach towards the end, they come to conclusion themselves like, okay, this sounds like exactly what I need in my business right now. So tell me, what is the investment? And you drop the number, they're very unlikely to ghost you at this stage because they already had a back and forth conversation with you. They're very unlikely to go all of a sudden just ghosting you. Not saying that they will never do that, but I'm saying that chances of that happening is much lower, right? Because they already have that back and forth conversation with you. From a habit wise, they're very likely to continue the process, continue the conversation, even if, let's say, it's a no. But that's a good thing, right? Because at least now you have this space to do objection handling. You have a chance to do object handling. You understand where the objection is. And because you have this rapport built up, you kind of understand why they need it, where they are in their business. It's very easy for you to tell as well, is that a true objection? Or is that something, maybe it's fear holding them back, maybe it's something else, for you to have that deeper conversation with the human on the other side. Right? So that is why it's important for you to ask those open questions in these DM conversations to making sure that people are not going to ghost at the end. And let's move to the last point, which is the bonus point. I talk about the sales psychology you can actually leverage to bring somebody from a, tell me more about your service, to like, yes, I want your service right now. It's actually pretty simple. It's something called Yes Ladder. So I don't know if you heard about that before, but let me explain the concept behind it. It's basically, if you ask simple commitment to somebody, let's say, can you do this? Can you do that? Right? Like going back to kind of, I guess, the business example is if you in your stories do some personal posts and be like, do you like tea and coffee? because it's very easy to interact with. People interact with your story, right? And the more they interact on small things, they're more likely to interact on big things. So for example, when you send them email, they actually open. When you do a live video, they actually join and watch the live video because they already have that habit of saying like yes to the smaller things. So they're likely to say yes to those larger action as well. So same thing apply here, right? So going back to we talked about before, are you this kind of ideal client of mine? They say yes. And then you ask another question that prompt them potentially to say yes. Another question prompt them to say yes. What is going to happen from the other side? The person on the other side is going to feel very seen and understood, right? They will feel like you understand who they are, what they do, and when you give them the information, they trust that like that is the right information they need to have in order to make a decision. So that's why the yes ladder is really powerful here, is because we want to ask the question to making sure that we're getting to know the leads a bit better. And obviously anytime if they're like no, and that's your qualifying question, that's when we can already tell that they are not a good fit for your offer or service, and you can direct them to a different direction, right? Rather than kind of pitching them into your program. So that's why it's really useful for you to ask in those qualifying questions to see if they're yes, and if they can say yes over time, when you drop, you know, this is the investment for the program, what's your thought on that? They're very likely to say like, actually say yes, because they have been saying yes all the way through. They feel like you understand them. They are a yes to everything so far. So why not yes to the program? So that's pretty much what we talk about today. So we talk about why inbound leads often ghost you, and what is the thing that you are doing actually made them ghost you. We talked about what you actually need to do instead to avoid your inbound leads ghosting, and the yes ladder, which is the sales psychology you should really leverage to close more inbound leads. But obviously this would only work if you have tons inbound leads right now, which is people in your DMs asking about your offer, your service. If you're not quite there yet, that's absolutely fine. We all go through beginner stage, then making sure that you are DMing or comment the word below framework. So if you comment or DM me the word framework, I will share with you my free 6 minutes training on the entire exact 4-step framework that we use here in DSM, and we actually use for our done for you sales clients as well, exactly what to do to making sure that we have a strong lead generation process, we have strong content converts, strong foundation, all of that good stuff to bring in inbound leads. Hope you enjoy this training, and I will see you in the next one.